All right. And we're live. Philosophy of Power podcast. And today is the 9th. And it's, what time is it there, Dion?
7:15, 8:15 your time.
All right. So 8:15 Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to discuss slave morality. And it's like a two-for show. So like we're going to be streaming to Dion's website over there at, what's your website there, buddy?
RadioWerewolf.com.
RadioWerewolf.com. So we'll be doing an episode of Philosophy Power Podcast and Radio Werewolf. And we're live on YouTube. This is the first ever live episode of Philosophy of Power Podcast via the YouTube channel. So come subscribe. Check us out. All right. You ready, Dion?
Yeah, just give me 1 second.
All right. So, yeah, folks, while he's setting that up, it is the 9th of February. That's when this is being recorded. Bear with us. This is my first live show, so I've been working the kinks out of the technical issues there, and yep.
All right, I'm back.
Okay. Sweet.
And we're live on my end.
Awesome. All right, cool. So,
all right.
Let's see here. So if I switch over here.
All right. Yeah, so hello and welcome to another episode of Radio Werewolf. I'm your host for tonight, Dion, broadcasting live right here on RadioWerewolf.com and also over on YouTube on the Philosophy of Power podcast. Doing a little bit of a simulcast here. Okay, a little bit of a technical difficulties at the beginning. I apologize for being late, you guys. But this is what happens when you work at a shoestring budget and you have to figure out everything yourself and have to learn how to do everything yourself. We don't have the millions of dollars that the Jewstream media does. We don't have a... What was that?
Just blame it on me.
We'll blame it on YouTube.
There we go. I think like I said the other night, I'm just like a monkey just randomly punching keys. I have no idea what I'm doing at all as far as this live shit goes. The live shit goes. I have no idea what's going on. This is like something crazy over here. And I've got some stuff keyed up, so in preparation for this topic, and so I was kind of like, my computer was being a little slow, so just bear with us here.
All right. All right. So yeah, now I got both chat rooms open.
All right.
So we can see if there's any questions or comments or telling us to go to hell or
or whatever. Yeah.
But yeah, so I asked James to be on my show tonight because there's one thing that's been on my mind lately is this whole idea of slave morality and master morality. And I guess we can probably get into a little bit of the herd morality and herd mentality because they all kind of coincide with each other.
Right. I have some material I was going to read to kind of get us into that topic, if you don't mind. It's a little bit lengthy, but it will, I think, bring anybody who's not up to speed on this issue up to speed.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know, most, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of people don't understand these things or have maybe never even heard of them before.
Right. So what I'm about to read comes from several different sources. One of the main ones is from, I believe it's dissidentright.com. And I've written about this topic in my book, but I don't know. I feel like probably not as extensive as, or not as, it wasn't the main focus of my book. So I figured I would fish around and find what I could, find what I could on the internet that would, no, you are not going to walk on my keyboard. You get over there. We are actually recording live before a ferret audience, so I'm protecting my keyboard from them because they like to do all kinds of crazy shit. All right, so here we go. In Master or Noble Morality, good picks out exalted and proud states of mind, and it therefore refers to people, not actions. In the first instance, bad means lowly, despicable, and refers to people who are pretty cowardly or concerned with what is useful, rather than what is grand or great. Notice that none of this depends on the idea of free will. Good, bad identifies a hierarchy of people. The noble masters, or aristocracy, and aristocracy, by the way, means to the rule of the best. So it's not like a plutocracy where it's like the rule of the wealthy. And the common people. The noble person only recognizes moral duties towards their equals. How they treat people below them is not a matter of morality at all. The good noble person has a sense of fullness, of power, wealth, ability, and so on. From the overflowing of these qualities, not from pity, they will help other people, including people below them. Noble or aristocratic people experience themselves as the origin of value, deciding what is good or not. Good originates in self-affirmation, a celebration of people's own greatness and power. They don't need others to say they are good. They revere themselves and have a devotion for whatever is great. But this is not self-indulgence. Any signs of weakness are despised, and harshness and severity are respected. A noble morality is a morality of gratitude and vengeance. Friendship involves mutual respect and a rejection of over-familiarity, while enemies are necessary in order to vent feelings of envy, aggression, and arrogance. All these qualities mean that the good person rightly evokes fear in those who are not their equal, and a respectful distance to those who are, or in those who are. Slave morality, on the other hand, begins with the rejection of master morality. It does not and cannot stand on its own. The traits of the noble person are evil, bad. And what is good is their absence. Its focus is the relief of suffering. Whatever is useful or opposes oppression is morally good. So pity, altruism, a lack of interest in oneself are good. Contrast that with what we just read about noble morality, or aristocratic, which is more egoistic, right? I am my own kind of God, if you will, my own subjective universe, and I am defining for myself what is good. I confer honor unto things. In opposing the noble morality, it also encourages humility and patience. It questions the apparent happiness of the noble person, rejects hierarchy, and argues that morality is the same for all. But it is pessimistic about the human condition, doubting the goodness of this life, and so it sees people as weak and pitiful. So it must look to the future and believe in progress. Hence, the liberal progressivism, right? And things getting better. And you often hear liberal progressives talk about, a morality and political ideologies, like equality and stuff, as a progression, like it's like technology rather than a fad. It lacks respect for the past, for traditions and ancestors. You notice that a lot of people a lot of whites in the modern West who are under this kind of slave morality, they have no respect for the ones who came before them. In fact, they may not know anything about their ancestry over in Europe. They may not have any kind of connection to that. And that's because the ideology of slave morality has very little respect for ancestry. There is a tendency for good people and good actions to be thought of as stupid or simple-minded. The slave revolt, if societies in Europe began with a noble morality, at some point, slave morality became dominant. And Peter Hughes and I have argued that, and Nietzsche have argued that this is actually, it's become dominant because of Christianity. And Christianity is pinpointed by Nietzsche as the dominant slave morality that, well, we'll get into that later. How and when did this revolution of values occur? And actually, I think he's going to talk about that now. Nietzsche's third historic account, this one from the perspective of the slaves, identifies the Jewish prophets as the origin, section 195. It was they, he says, who fused rich, good, godless, evil, violent, sensuous into one entity, and were the first to mint the word world as a curse word. Worldly success, what was good, indicates moral failure, is now evil. But the Jewish prophets were only the beginning. It is Christianity which carried forward the revolt. While it is important that as its origins, let me say that again, while it is important that at its origins, real class differences between those groups and the group and Roman aristocracy existed as usual, Nietzsche is more interested in the psychological story. There is nothing specifically Jewish about slave morality, and Nietzsche is uninterested in the differences between Jew, Christian, and slave in this account. And he's referring, I think, to Nietzsche's text on the genealogy of morals and also Beyond Good and Evil, section 260. What drove the reevaluation of values? Section 46, Nietzsche says, the slave manifold hidden suffering rages against the noble sensibility which seems to deny suffering. The Roman rulers seemed invalued being free-spirited, reinterpreted wicked, self-confident, reinterpreted decadent, carefree, lazy, tolerant, unruly. They viewed slaves with contempt, pity, and disdain, causing hatred that could not be expressed directly. Now, I don't want to read the whole thing because it's too lengthy, but I think I'll begin with something that'll kind of take us up to nowadays, which is a little section. And again, I think this is from the dissonantright.com. And I just thought it was really well written, so I figured I would share it. So this section is called Social Justice and the Victimization Fetish. As the centuries passed, Christianity waxed and waned across the Middle East and in the Western world, and in recent years has been in decline in its traditional stronghold, Europe and America. Secular liberalism, with its humanist religious flavor, has largely replaced Christianity in these societies. The progression was one of ease. Christianity and liberalism are similarly, in many regards, are similar in many regards, and as science begins to shed light on many of the claims that the Bible made, it has left plenty of room for doubt for those believers who believed more than the spiritual and moral lessons. In truth, I believe that liberalism was an evolution of Christianity. And in fact, I've actually argued this in my book in a chapter called Existence as Valhalla, and I think mentioned in a few other places throughout the book. A next step for humans who have learned much about the physical reality of the world and left behind the more mythological aspects of the religion. As liberalism gains and Christianity declines, that is the theology, we see only the form change. The substance remains largely the same. Despite this shift in religious persuasion, one thing is clear. This modern shift, it looks like there's a typo here, but this modern shift to a new religion is nothing revolutionary or new. The old and the new are remarkably similar in that the new is likewise predicated on the acceptance of slave morality as the foundation. This condition is prevalent in our society's recent quest for social justice and the self-flagellation that tends to accompany those who champion the cause. Liberalism, with its core foundation based upon the notion of human equality, appears in many aspects to be overcompensating for past grievances. That is, racial, sexual, we had slaves here in America, and the slave trade and all that shit. So you need to atone for that. You need to feel bad conscience for that. Women weren't always able to vote. They were treated as second-class citizens, and so we ought to feel guilty for that. And justice causes tend to give minorities, who are defined as such only through a Western lens, a revered status within their circles. They willingly defer in stating their opinions to those who come from a traditionally maligned group. Thus, you'll see things like in certain groups where they tell white people that they need to shut up and let African Americans and Hindus speak, as they believe that by virtue of not being a member of the same underclass, they cannot understand the experiences of those people. This is exacerbated throughout society by those who attempt to publicly shame, denigrate, and enact mob violence on those who opinions that they see as palatable, typically opinions that they see as oppressive or hateful towards a pet minority group. This focus on social justice issues has even taken precedence over our discussion of other political topics affecting Western society, such as immigration, terrorism, etc. And actually, there's a video that kind of illustrates that was put out, I want to say last night, that Milo in Indianapolis talked about. Let me see if I can just pull that up real quick. I have it all keyed up and ready to go. So, but I think it illustrates this kind of special aristocracy of victims that this ideology tends to create. And let me see if I can. I know I've got him somewhere around here. Where is he at? I'm still learning how to use my trackpad. So I'm learning how to oh, okay, maybe this is it. Let me see. No, that's not it. Okay, that's a live event here, and God damn it, I had it all keyed up. Trying to figure out where the hell I put it. Maybe if we go to history here. Okay. Should be able to find it now. Oh, that's not it either. Okay. Well, sorry, I don't have anybody over here helping me. So I'm kind of doing all this by myself, trying to figure out where the fuck I put everything. Let's see here. And supposedly, the more I do these kind of live things, I will get better at it. Let's see.
Yeah, really, because that's the only way you really learn is
by
doing something. And I've learned that over the years too. You know, I've had problems with this and that. And you have technical difficulties in the middle of a goddamn show thing, and the worst time to have something happen. But the more you do it, the more you get used to it.
Right.
And you kind of have to just keep going.
Okay, well, I found it.
Okay.
Let me just make sure we get it to the right spot. And I do have the right spot memorized here, I do believe. Okay.
If they don't represent the African American people, then what does? And who's to say that Lamont Hill?
Your ideological box. When you are a gay person who dares to be conservative, for instance, they try to take the gay bit away from you because they know that it gives you special privileges. They know that being a gay in public life, you can say things other people can't say. And this explodes the entire concept of privilege.
So right there, he's admitting that gay people have special privileges because they're part of this protected identity group. This is Milo Yiannopoulos talking on Alex Jones' InfoWars show there.
Because it demonstrates that actually, if you're a straight white male, you are the least free in public life. You are the least free to express yourself.
Why do you think, this was obviously persecution before, not as much as they say, but it went on. Why then would they then become what they claim they were fighting? It's really, and then like worse than what they were fighting, because it's so vitriolic, it's so aggressive, it wants full control. I mean, normally a bunch of KKK guys just want their trailers and to hang around act like lords over their little area. You know, some little, crap hole. Instead, they want to rule everything, Milo. And
it's revenge. It's very simple. It's revenge. And a lot of these movements, and some people don't like it when I say this, but I think it's perfectly true. And Black Lives Matter as an example is a lot of these movements are run by very angry women. And those women often have had very bad relationships with men. You look
by
at
the way, Milo, I'm going to apologize to you. I mean this because I remember seeing.
Okay, enough of that. So basically, he says it's revenge. Really, what Nietzsche says is that it's based off ressentiment. It's based off of resentment. So the downtrodden ones in society who have less than desirable, less than acceptable lifestyles, for example, like gay people or whatever, or whatever identity group they might belong to, they are very, very resentful, right? And so it is in their power interest to legislate things like equality, right, which benefits the downtrodden ones, for example. But I wanted to just finish this article up real quick, and then we can go back to do some commentary. Let me just find out where the fuck I was here. Based on human equality, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I don't know if this is where we're at, but maybe. Despite the shift in religious persuasion, one thing is clear. This modern shift to a new religion is nothing. Okay, yeah, we read that already. So I'm assuming right here. Focus has manifested strongly amongst the political left and has started to become institutionally recognized amongst governmental organizations and businesses. Businesses cannot maximize profit when a group of potential customers feel the company is hostile to their interests, and so they do not buy their products. For many companies, it is purely an economic concern that drives them towards enabling and, on occasion, joining the minority protection theater by taking carefully calculated moral stances against perceived oppression and hate, either real or imagined. This fetishization I can't even talk, man. Fetishization of victim status has become so powerful in our societies that we now have cases of individuals who come from traditionally privileged homes who attempt to deceive the world and pretend that they are also members of various types of underclasses, society at large, recognized today. Prominent examples are Sean King and Rachel Dolezal, I want to say, D-O-L-E-Z.
Dolezal.
Okay, Dolezal, whatever. Both being individuals of European descent who have lied and modified their lives and appearances in order to appear African in origin, as people of African descent are a socially recognized victim class. If we have reached a societal point where people who are considered by many to be inherently privileged are pretending to be of another race for benefits and power that we give to people of these varying minority groups, perhaps it is time to consider whether those groups can still be considered an underclass. The inversion of values that occurred during the Roman Empire has been such a successful movement that I believe we are still witnessing its effects to this day, two millennia later. Perhaps it was always going to turn out like this. By definition, the underclass is far larger than a ruling class can ever be, and they require a spiritual base from which to find the will to continue their meager, poor, infirm, and downtrodden lives until they can indulge in the pleasures of the next. Yet the spread of this ideology has been so far-reaching in the West that by virtue of being an oppressed minority group among those who subscribe to the ideology, one can have power over them. From the under seeds of resentment grew upwards, now reaching the top, truly a successful inversion of values as victimization becomes power. The end.
All right. Yeah, and the whole, this whole concept of slave morality really did come out of Christianity and Judaism. They were basically slaves at the time. And, if you look at the pagan pantheons, all their deities all have these virtues of strength and honor and discipline. All these noble virtues. And you have these, on the other hand, you have this slave morality where these, they honor things like humility and giving up your earthly possessions and all this stuff.
Right. And, like if you look at, like Nordic, Northern Europe, Northern European mythologies, you see, like, trying to think of Odin, for example, who had a disability because he didn't he lose an eye, right, to get knowledge. He nailed himself to a tree or some shit, and
right.
Yeah. It's like in the beginning of my book, I talk about, maybe it's just best if I read it, but there's like two different attitudes that one can have here. Hold on. This will only take a second because I know right where it is. Okay. Okay. The passive nihilist is the slave-minded type of person who, when confronted with the fact of theoretical nihilism, that is the reality that there is no objective morality, sees it as a dead end. This kind of person lacks the strength and courage to make something out of his life. So in other words, like the noble type of man, the self-made individual, will see setbacks like having a disability or whatever. It won't see it necessarily as a setback, but will strive beyond that. Will won't sit there and try to get privilege because of this physical setback or whatever, right? But will actually overcome it, and will actually strive beyond that. In other words, will stand on his own two legs in despite of the adversities that he faces, right? One is it's a passive kind of thing where, woe is me, and I deserve special recognition and status because of my victim status. And another one's more like, no, fuck that. I don't want your pity. I'm going to become stronger in spite of this, right? In other words, one type of person becomes stronger because of setbacks, and another one doesn't. Another one doesn't become stronger, right? They just kind of fall into this kind of passive nihilism. And actually, what you brought up is interesting. I have this keyed up if you want to listen. This is a short little audio clip from Ontologistics on YouTube, and his video entitled Will to Power Nietzsche. So it's a nice little lecture that he did on Nietzsche, and it has like on Nietzsche's doctrine of the will to power, and it has like 146,000 views. It's pretty popular, probably the most popular video he's ever done. But I'll play a little bit of it because I think it touches on what you were kind of getting to, right? So let me just make sure that I'm on the right thing here. Let's see, 13:16? Yes. Okay. So this is exactly 13 minutes and 16 seconds into the video that I just referred to.
Perspective of the weak. It offers metaphysical punishment to your enemies.
All right, maybe I should back up just a little bit. Let's see, right here.
Perspective based on subconscious power considerations. Nietzsche singles out Christianity, which for him is a perspective of the weak. It offers metaphysical punishment to your enemies, as a real physical punishment is not an option. It offers an afterlife of eternal peace, only of value to someone who suffers from life. It offers a slave morality of virtues that benefit the weak: compassion, humility, servility, equal rights, etc., and presents them as objective absolute. Christianity is itself a power structure originating in an underclass of the Romans, the latter having a different morality based on their perspective of relative power. All morality is false, or rather no morality is absolute or objective. In this, Nietzsche echoes the arguments of the ancient sophists, whom Plato sought to refute, unsuccessfully in Nietzsche's eyes. All characteristics have had their day as virtues or vices, depending on whether they serve the power of their subjects. Even mindless violence was a virtue in Homeric Greece. The danger of Christianity and the slave morality it has spread is, from Nietzsche's own perspective, that it values the weak and mediocre over the great, and as such has halted humanity's power progress. Christianity's legacy is so ingrained within Western culture that alleged atheists even presuppose this perspective's valuation unwittingly. For example, utilitarians, such as Mill, simply assume as axiomatic that pleasure is of higher value than pain, and that each person should have equal rights when calculating the consequences of an action. Likewise, socialists believe in equality as axiomatic, without being able to prove why it is an objective value. For Nietzsche, socialism is tantamount to Christianity without the God. But without the God, there is no sanctioning of the slave moral. When Nietzsche stated that God is dead, he meant that if one does not believe in God, one has no logical right to believe in the morality which this deity ushered in. We must develop and start thinking in terms beyond good and evil, the name of one of his later books. To conclude, the will to power is...
Okay, so I think that was a good little illustration there of what we were talking about.
Yeah, that put in pretty good, concise package of what I was actually trying to explain. That, you know, you have this morality, this is basically a slave morality, where they are basically a slave to their own ideology and their own, well, I guess, theology. But nowadays, it's more ideology driven, because communism and socialism is basically just a extension of Christianity.
Right. Well, you know, to be more specific, like Nietzsche talks about how the equality of souls before God, right? Or I should say it this way: the equality before the law is derived from the equality of souls before God. The Christian notion of equality of souls before God is like the base for all of these things. And so, you know, as I've said in prior episodes, I hate to beat this horse to death, but it seems like every former Christian nation we're looking at is now turned to a social justice fucking hell, you know, full of social justice warriors and, you know, socialism and equalityism and just, you know, just bullshit.
Right, absolutely. And, you know, they're basically just trying to tear down Western civilization, the old ways. Like you mentioned at the beginning of the show, that's essentially what they're trying to do, and they're trying to get rid of the old traditions.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. You know, the old aristocratic morality is something that's been long done away with, you know, through Christianity, and it's something that unfortunately Christianity has basically made a way for pathological altruism, because what happens is you take this idea of equality, and at first it's just, you know, equality before God, and then it's, you know, equality before the law, and then it expands out. Well, we ought to have this kind of altruism towards not just our, you know, closer in group, but we need to make our in group bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And just everything becomes all inclusive, and that's pretty dangerous because, you know, it's empathy is a trait that we've evolved to for in-group unity to help us survive. For example, we wouldn't be able to pass on our genes without empathy, because women need to be protected within a tribe in those vulnerable months while they're pregnant and they're nursing. They need the tribe to have empathy for them to help them in their vulnerable times. And without that, you know, of course, then, you know, the first barbarian in the tribe be like, that baby's too loud. He just go smack its head against a rock or something, you know, like, I mean, without empathy within an in-group, you know, a certain amount of it, you know, you can't really have in-group, you know, cohesivity, to make up my own word. You know, you can't really have a cohesive thing without some empathy, right? But you can take that too far, And suppose a tribe just says, oh, this tribe over here, I know we've been competing for all the same resources, but let's go ahead and make them part of the tribe. And, we'll go ahead and, we'll just say that our land over here is, we have no right to say that this is ours. We should just let anybody come in our land, and then you end up with, all kinds of hell, because, and I think this is also a product of women having say in civilization. The amount of say that they have nowadays, because men are evolutionary, especially evolutionary adapted to draw the line and draw boundaries and say, this is the tribe, and everyone outside of this line is not the tribe. Draw those safety barriers and be able to say that everything beyond our campfire, those people are not us, right? That's them. And women are more, they're not really, biologically, evolutionarily adapted for that kind of task. They're more like, women are, throughout history, have probably been, they've married off into other tribes, right? They've had like less, they have to have less loyalty in order to spread the genes, basically, if that makes any sense. And men, not so much. Men have to, they're the primary protectors. They're the ones who have to be territorial and draw boundaries and say, you don't pass this boundary here. This is ours, because men have to make the tough decisions about how to, protect the tribe, and how to, how is the tribe going to survive,
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, because if you go back, through our entire history, people have had to basically protect what's theirs and those around them. Especially if you're talking about Europe with the harsh conditions. Every other place in, the Eastern world, they live in pretty, temperate climates. They don't have to deal with the harsh conditions like they did in Europe with the winters and the basically just the winters, I guess. But if you live in that kind of climate, you have to know how to prepare to defend yourself and how to prepare for the coming winter. Just run around in a loincloth all goddamn day and not invent anything ever. You gotta know how to adapt to the situation.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, Nietzsche talked about the dangers of universalizing morality, and that's exactly what the left has done. That's exactly what Christianity has done, as universalized morality, because you have a monotheistic God who rules over all of the earth, all of mankind, and has created everything, and therefore you're supposed to be able to, this kind of morality has to be universal. It has to apply to everyone at all times. And you've seen this in Stoicism as well. Stoicism had this idea where it extended its morality to all intelligent creatures, for example. And it talked about everyone being citizens, all these intelligent creatures being citizens of the cosmos, of the world, as Nietzsche talked about these types coining the term world. So yeah, there's a danger in that. There's a danger in universalizing morality and universalizing empathy, for example, and saying that this needs to apply to everyone. We need to just be empathetic towards everyone, regardless of whether they care whether we live or die. And that's basically what you see nowadays with whites, is that these lefty whites, these liberal progressive whites, are saying, oh, we need to just have empathy towards the freaking Middle Eastern kid who washed up on the shore trying to go through Greece or wherever it was. We need to just, like, you ever notice that Christian missionaries have historically been the ones who go into these lost, these tribes out in the middle of the Congo or wherever the fuck, all over the world, and they're on TV e-begging, give me money so we can feed these people. They're starving to death. And I think to the Vikings, this would have been kind of like an old woman's morality, right? Because it doesn't draw those tough distinctions of what's going to benefit us, the tribe, and what is dangerous, what is detrimental to the tribe's survival. And now that we have countries and we've made bigger tribes, we call countries, and now there's this kind of identity of, you have, like, for example, there's a Facebook group, and there's probably more than one, but here's one that I know of a group called it's basically a bunch of fundy atheist lefties who want a world government, right? They just want there to be one centralized government. So you see expanding from tribe to country to now the world, right? And that's exactly what these people want. They want globalism, and they want to erase all identity, and to just have, one identityless blob where everybody is just all a mix of, all kinds of things. Just destroy diversity, pretty much, and just have one big, all of humanity is one tribe kind of thing.
Right, and then they have this idea that everybody has the same principles and values as everybody else. They don't realize that people have different ideas and different ways of thinking about things. Like these cop shootings in the United States, where they're talking about, like, Michael Brown, for instance. That's a good example, because, he went and attacked a cop and tried to take his gun. But the left is out there screaming that, oh, this would never happen. He would never do that. Nobody would do that. It's like, no, you wouldn't do that. Right. That doesn't mean somebody else wouldn't do that. So they bring all these people in who have different values and different principles, and then they're surprised when they are violent and act aggressively towards their host nations.
Right. Yeah. They want to bring in Sharia law and all this other crap, which is totally antithetical to liberalism, at least in the classical sense. But yeah, I mean, you find that a lot of these liberals are just as fascist as or totalitarian as the Sharia folks, the Islamicists, who want to force women to wear burqas and throw gay people off of rooftops and shit. The left is just as intolerant, right? And not that I'm saying that we ought to be tolerant. Tolerant is a great thing, tolerance to a certain extent within an in-group is needed, but tolerance towards things that are antithetical to your own values is just suicidal.
Yeah, because that's exactly what they're doing in Europe right now. Like you said, they got this people coming in, they want to instill Sharia law and denigrate women. But these leftists, they don't care. You see them out there with their signs that say rapists, not racists, and crap like that.
Right.
They have no qualms about tearing down their own society for their own ideological utopian view.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I've already said, it's a product of just universalizing this thing that they call this human characteristic of empathy. And I wanted to talk about where bad conscience kind of comes into this. I guess the best analogy that I've come up with, at least when I was writing my book, was to talk about the kind of similarities between the street evangelizers, like let's say Ray Comfort or Kirk Cameron, who basically, like, you know, anyone who knows anything about me knows that, you know, I was affiliated with them a long time ago, and that I was a Christian street preacher and stuff. And I noticed that we would evangelize, you know, we'd preach on stools, and we talk to people about sin, basically. You know, we'd ask them, you know, things like, have you ever told a lie? You know, so what does that make you? And then they'd be like, you know, someone who lies, you know, and be like, no, that makes you a liar, right? And what do liars deserve? And we just go down this thing. So it's like, if you can be like programmed, if you can be conditioned in your sentiments to say that certain sets of characteristics are evil, like lying, or whatever it might be, a sex outside of marriage, which, you know, is a big taboo in Christianity, then you can convict them of bad conscience. So they'd say, so basically what we try to do is guilt trip people, right? We try to guilt trip people with the 10 Commandments, and we try to get them to feel bad about lying and feel bad about this, and see that they needed Jesus. They needed, you know, Jesus' sacrifice to cover their sins, you know, the atonement, or the at-one-ment, right? And so it's like this Christianity is this idea that you have committed an ought not against this being, right, who has always been. And who decides that you've committed an ought not? The being has, right? This being has subjectively decided that your nature is wrong and should not be, right? Even though it created you the way you are. And of course, they'll argue that, you know, that that man fell, that originally his nature was good. In other words, good just means God. So what does it mean? It means that man was godly, right? He had a righteous nature by God's subjective standards. And so you're supposed to adopt this sentiment, this negative feeling about everything that this God character doesn't like. So you're supposed to adopt these likes and dislikes of this God character. And so as long as you can be told and convinced that these preferences of this God character are objective and binding, then you will feel bad about yourself, and you'll kick yourself for your own human nature, right? You'll kick yourself when you, for example, look at a woman with lust, right? Or you notice that your friend's wife is hot, or whatever, right? Doesn't mean you'll act on it, but just by thinking about it, it's evil. So it's like thought crime, right? And we see this on the left. You know, there's everything's fucking thought crime in the left. Everything is, except on the left, it's, you know, like things like white superiority or white supremacism or whatever is like the original sin, you know. And so you have to feel guilty about that, because by their standards, no one can be exceptional. No one can. Everyone has to be equal. You know, and you have to feel bad about when you're not equal. And there's places that you or your relatives, your ancestors have, for example, in a master morality, it would probably be seen as a good thing that you were a conqueror, that you colonized the world, right? That you created settlements and you took land from outside tribes, right? This would be seen as a virtuous thing, right? But on the left, they've conditioned people from since they were sucking on their mama's tit, that these kind of things are wrong, right? Because in slave morality, it is precisely the characteristics that inspire fear in the slave type of person that is considered evil. Being a conqueror and being successful in creating civilization is a wrong thing. It's a bad thing, because everyone has to be equal. No one can be superior. And this is kind of like where, like in when France back in the day drug out the aristocrats and slit their throats, right? And they became like a democracy. They became, that's basically what democracy is. Also another slave value, right? Because the average herdling, the average slave animal, becomes in charge of government to some extent, right? So a government is seen legitimate because it is agreed upon by the majority, by the average, the biggest group of within the 99%. Okay. And you see the left go around demonizing people who have wealth, people who have achieved things, who have companies and who have become rich. These people are bad, right? Because they are exploiting other people, and that's how they're making their money, because they're not they're doing it at the expense of other people, right? And that's what business is about. Business is about exploiting other people to get what you want, to put out a product, and you're making money off of the hard work of others, right? To put out a product so that you can make more money off of that. And that is the nature of life itself, as Nietzsche pointed out, is life is exploitation, right? We couldn't survive unless we exploited other organisms to our own benefit. For example, in the North, where our ancestors evolved there, Northern Europe, we had to exploit animals in order to survive, to accomplish our goals, to survive and to conquer lands and such, right? We had to skin them and make clothes out of them. We had to eat them. We had to put our will over their will. And so slave morality is basically putting one's will on a par with every other will, which Nietzsche says is a secret path to nothingness.
Right, and that's essentially what we're starting to have now, is absolutely nothing. They try to get rid of every type of identity. First it was racial, now it's this gender crap that they're trying to push on everybody. This non-binary garbage that doesn't even make any goddamn sense. They just make up these. It's like they make up stuff. They make up these terms, and everybody's supposed to buy it, and everybody's supposed to believe in it. And the fact that I know most people don't buy this stuff, and most people know what they're saying is complete garbage and doesn't make any goddamn sense, and it's just made up. But on the other hand, you got these people who do believe in this stuff, and they're so rabid about it, and they're so zealot about it, and they will not have a conversation with you because they know they're wrong. They have to know they're goddamn wrong.
Right.
But they also will punch you in the face and call you a Nazi if you disagree with them.
Right. And that's because, with any, I'm trying to remember the quote, but, I'm trying to remember where that quote is. There was a quote that Nietzsche, from Nietzsche, that really explained so well, but, and there's one from D. Cassiers too. I'm trying to think of I can't remember off the top of my head. But there is a quote that really, I think, hits the nail on the head about what morality actually is, right? What morality is actually about. Let me see if I can find it here. Aesthetics. Okay. Okay, this is from James L. Walker. It makes no difference where moral codes come from. whether they are derived from the ideas of God, of natural law, or any other idea. It is the enemy of the sovereign self. The sovereign self knows moral obligations are myth. To such a person, the words good and evil merely express degrees in attitude and or mistaken belief. The terms are and must always be completely subjective. They have no objective referent. But of course, they have been used as objective norms for millennia. The cornerstone of all moralisms is the desire to control and encourage obedience. The greatest practitioner of control over others have always been religions and governments, both of which are obliged to establish moral codes or laws as a means of justifying their demands for submission.
Yeah, that's basically what I was saying earlier. You know, you have to submit to these values and to their propaganda.
Yeah, right. I mean, morality is. I'm not trying to denigrate morality. While I am a moral nihilist and I don't think that morality is true, that doesn't mean that we can live without it. Like, we need some subjective valuations to have a society. We need a list of things that are destructive towards society, towards the general health, and some things, and whatever isn't, well, who cares? But like, we need these values that act as a cohesion, right? But I guess why I kind of promote moral nihilism is because it allows one to see morality for what it is, to use morality, but not be used by morality, not be, in other words, by seeing it for what it is and the power structure that it is, then you're able to work within it without being fooled, by it. Is there?
I can understand that, because you can't let something rule over you that's actually subjectively idealistic, I guess.
Yeah, you see that it's just a preference. It's just something that a group of people want. Like, for example, men have to be controlled in civilization in order for that civilization to exist. So men have to be out of control in order to create civilization. That is, they have to go and they have to commit violence against other people in order to take their land and their resources in order to build a civilization. But then after the civilization is founded, those men have to be disbanded. They have to be controlled and kept, under the chains of morality. Otherwise, they'll just be taking people's riches. It'll be for the sake of government and the sake of other rich people. They have to be kept under control. They have to be taught that X is immoral and Y is immoral and G is virtuous, right? Otherwise, they are not. That's why we put people in prison, because they do what barbarians did in order to make our civilization in the first place.
Right, now you got all these, the over feminization of men, while we have our own enemy amongst us. You're trying to control the people and control the rest of civilization. And there's nobody to really fight back against this. But you see this in Europe, where they have, basically thought control and language laws, that you can't say certain things. You can't even think there's certain things.
Right.
You can't speak out against your government or you'll go to jail.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's all. I mean, morality, morality, politics. Like morality is about how people ought to behave. So it's about controlling human behavior. And government is also about controlling human behavior. It's about, answering the ultimate question, or else what? Don't steal, don't rob, don't kill, because if you do, violence is going to be the final answer, right? It's not the only answer, but it's the final answer, as Jack Donovan said in his essay, "Violence is Golden." So it's, yeah, I mean, all of these are, religion is a power structure, and that's why religion and government are so, intertwined, right? Because they are the power structures that keep a society together, right? The kind of cohesive thing, right? For the average person who believes this nonsense about government being, about authority, for example, that authority exists. Obviously, power exists, and the power to make someone do something, do a certain thing, or live a certain way exists. If that's what you mean by authority, then yeah, authority exists. But if you mean that there is a group of people that you ought obey, just ought obey, independent of consequences, then no, that's just pure nonsense, right? And Christianity teaches, I would think it was Paul, I'm trying to remember what letters, it's been a long time, but he talks about how rebellion against government is basically a rebellion against God, right? So you can see there that Christianity goes hand in hand with government, just like a lot of other religions do, because they're both power structures.
Right, and they're all based on controlling the herd, and they're all control mechanisms to keep people in line and think a certain way. And it seems nowadays, I guess, it seems more in your face once you actually realize what's going on.
Right.
It's like you see these people who watch TV. TV is the greatest invention that they have ever created to control the masses. Because they see these things on TV and the commercials, and even the TV shows are probably worse than the commercials. I haven't watched TV in like 10 years, but because I started seeing this stuff, and you can see these control mechanisms, and you can see the way they try to manipulate, your consciousness and what you should believe and what you should think is right and wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Slowly introducing certain unacceptable lifestyles, and then introducing them more, and then introducing them more, and then suddenly the whole show is about that particular lifestyle, and it's kind of like a cooking a frog. You just turn the heat up real slow, and then people get used to it, and then they're desensitized towards a given thing, and they're even taught to embrace a certain kind of lifestyle, like homosexuality or whatever, right? There's something else I wanted to bring up about this. There's an analogy I like to use when talking about civilization and slave morality, is that so you take ferrets, for example. Ferrets are they're basically polecats that we took from the wild in Northern Europe, and ferrets have been domesticated longer than dogs. They're like man's other best friend. Okay, and ferrets are if you go look at a polecat in the wild out there, they're much bigger. They're very solitary animals, and they're a lot more aggressive than ferrets, right? Polecats are. So ferrets are a population of polecats that we took and we modified through selective breeding, right? And we basically selected in these domesticated traits, these dog-like characteristics, just like the wolf, or if you go find a wolf in the wild, he's not going to be like a dog. He doesn't bark. He's aggressive. He may bite you and kill you. But a dog, most of the time, they're very domesticated. But with ferrets, the reason why I'm using ferrets is because ferrets are even more domesticated than dogs. And ferrets are smaller, much smaller than European polecats, even though they're the same species, right? Or at least they're derived from the same species. And they're very domesticated. One of my ferrets, he's very, very gentle, and he won't bite you even if he feels threatened, right? He won't fight back. My other ferret will fight back if she feels threatened, but generally is still very tame in a lot of other ways. And that's what I see that slave morality, and I think what Nietzsche was saying about slave morality, what it's doing to mankind, it's creating this kind of last man where he's over domesticated. And I haven't checked on this thoroughly, but I've heard that there is a dramatic drop in men's testosterone. And we know that testosterone is correlated with aggressive behavior, violence, and things like that. And as this period of domestication goes on, men lose more and more of that testosterone. And so man is no longer that unconquerable warrior. He's now, a tamed beast in the zoo. He's now a caricature of a man, basically. I'm saying in general, I'm not talking about all men everywhere, but men don't have too many outlets for their primal urges, right? And so they're basically, man is being via slave morality is being domesticated more and more as time goes on. And since we now have this extreme form of Christian morality, which is liberal progressivism, socio-political liberalism, it's probably, I would say it's most likely exacerbating the amount of domestication that already exists within man, right?
Right. To go along with what you were saying, like we don't have those outlets anymore, and they try to artificially create those outlets. You got people like doing kickboxing and regular boxing and whatever else it is, some form of martial arts, but you don't have that same outlet you do when you're, out on the street and somebody wants to get in your face. You don't have the adrenaline, and you don't have the actual emotion that goes along with that. It's more controlled, and it's more sanitized.
Yeah, exactly. It's all controlled by the the violence of the threatened aggression of the state. Exactly. What I was going to say about ferrets is that you can let a ferret go, but he'll die, right? He can't survive in the wild because they've been domesticated for so long, for so many centuries, thousands of years even. I'm not sure what the exact date is, but long time, that they literally, the captured population of polecats that we call ferrets cannot survive on their own. They can't hunt. If they do catch something, they might kill it, but they won't eat it. They don't understand how to survive. They just really don't. They might be reduced to like going through garbage cans or something, but they would die, right? And that's what I fear, that if civilization falls, I wonder if there'll be anyone left who can. Well, as it stands right now, there would be people left. You got the down-home country boys who are out there doing their bush crafting, and they're into all the survival stuff, and they have meetups, and they all camp together, and they know how to hunt, they know how to fish, they know how to, basically make a civilization, a primitive civilization. But that's being demonized right now, right? That kind of person, now you have the label of toxic masculinity being thrown around, with that kind of aggressive male, that creative male force is being basically demonized within this current civilization.
Yeah, I was actually talking about that yesterday, and I've talked about that on past shows. You got is a bad word. People who do survivalist. The militias have been a horrible word since the 90s.
Y'all Qaeda. Y'all Qaeda. Y'all Qaeda.
Yeah. They always got to bring up Timothy McVeigh.
Right.
Anybody who wants to be self-supportive or self-sufficient is a horrible thing in the society, and people don't know how to deal with that.
Right. They want to herd everybody into cities now and have everybody dependent on government. All these give me that programs. And I know when I was a kid, and I probably sound old like just saying that phrase there, but when I was a kid, I was always taught that nobody owes you shit, and that you only collect food stamps. And even collecting food stamps was seen as a crummy thing to do, basically. And
right.
My dad wasn't the most educated person in the world, but he had like a learning disability. But he worked hard. He did plumbing, heating, wiring, refrigeration, like very practical, vocational stuff. He didn't have a lot of theoretical knowledge, at least in comparison to me. And so, but he worked hard, and he never collected food stamps. I can't think of ever there being time, as poor as we were. Sometimes we even lived out of a van. Back in the 80s and 90s, and we never took handouts, from the government or anything like that. And in fact, I didn't even have I think I told you this the other. I didn't even have a social security number until I was like 15, and that was when he passed away. So it's just very kind of things. It was just more independent back then, it seemed like, and now seems like everybody's on welfare. Taking handouts is a very common thing, and women getting pregnant by several different dudes is a very common thing, and even seen as virtuous in many circles. Single parenthood mother, type situation where the mother's working for a corporation and she's raising 3 different kids by 3 different guys, like that kind of shit, right? You see a lot of that going on. Whereas when I was growing up, that was heard of, but it wasn't glorified or seen as virtuous or anything like that. It was seen as. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, there's no stigma to these destructive behaviors anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like, we're about the same age, and I remember when I was a kid too, it was like that. Anybody who was on food stamps or welfare or anything like that, they were seen as less of a person. And you didn't want to be like that. You didn't want to just sit around and do nothing all day. And we actually had, a work ethic. And it seems like nobody really has that anymore. And they kind of push that out of society, where you have these millennials who go to college, get these degrees, and they just live at home with mom and dad now.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't know. My family was pretty like scattered. Like it was very a dysfunctional family, and like my mother's side didn't go along with my father's side, and my father's side was actually very degenerate and had a lot of drug addicts in it and stuff. And then like my mother's side was more like a traditional Christian type atmosphere, and but it was very broken. So like when I needed a place to stay, when I lost my job because of layoffs or something, I didn't have anywhere to go. So I had to learn how to, like for example, there were many times when, Nietzsche talks about how what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And that's true. That's very true. I've lived that saying myself. There were times where I was working, like 2 different jobs, sometimes 3 at a time, and living out of a bush, right? And everything is so much harder when you're homeless, right? And I was even studying a lot of the stuff that I talk about now. I've learned during those times, And it was pretty much all I had. I didn't even talk to many people. I've always been very pretty introverted and pretty like self-sufficient psychologically speaking, and never really needed a lot of friends or anything like that. So I got to become more independent through those hard times, and I got to be strong, and I got to learn that you don't make excuses. You don't sit there and whine about shit. You fix it. You make a list. You say, hey, what are my problems right now? What am I concerned about? Okay, what can I do about it? All right, let's make a list of things I can do. I can't do anything? Oh, well then don't fucking piss and moan about it, right? You just accept the things that you can't control, and you do things that you can do, and you don't fucking wail about it. You don't get resentment about society, or, oh, everything's unfair, and the corporations and the rich people are trying to keep me down, or, you know, shit like that. You just don't do that. There's no point in it, right? You bear it, and you become stronger because of it. But I don't really see a lot of that attitude nowadays.
No, not at all. It's like a lot of people, it's like they see a problem and they think somebody else should do something about it, or the government should do something about it. Everybody but themselves should fucking do something about it. And it's annoying. And it's one of the things that really gets on my nerves and kind of gets me mad.
Yeah, one thing I learned too is that while nobody owes you anything, right?
Right.
While nobody owes you anything, if you are doing something, if you are doing everything you can for yourself, other people will want to help you, right? And it's just, now it's like the kind of opposite attitude where everybody owes me something because I have less, because I had a bad beginning, or I didn't have the start that some rich kid in the burbs had, right? I never had that kind of attitude, really. Maybe for a short time when I was in my teens, I kind of had the attitude, but then I learned real quick that the world doesn't give a fuck about what you think is fair. Reality, you know, as Cantwell says often, you know, reality will sooner bury in a mudslide than give you air to breathe, right? And you know, you just kind of, it's that kind of outlook that seeing reality for what it is and accepting it that makes you a stronger person. And slave morality doesn't do that. Slave morality is, because it's based off resentment. You know, like you have all these, you already said, these, you know, these lefties that they think that everybody owes them something, and oh, the corporations are, you know, taking advantage of us poor folks and all that stuff, and we need to make everything equal. And it's like, no, we need to pick ourselves up by our own bootstraps and make something out of ourselves, in spite of what we may think is fair or not fair, right? Because life is what it is, and it doesn't give a fuck about you, right? You have to give a fuck about you, and you have to cowboy it the fuck up, grow some balls, and do something about whatever it is you can do. You know, like I don't have a college degree in philosophy, but that didn't stop me. I went and got books at the library. I bought books with what little money I had. I made friends with people in academia who do have degrees, and I learned a lot from them, and they actually enjoyed teaching me a lot of the shit that I know, because they were like, wow, this guy is really motivated. He's really interested in what we've spent our life teaching and studying. So let's go ahead and you know, spend some time with this guy. And that's kind of what happened, you know, like you can pretty much achieve anything you want. You just gotta have the drive, you know, you gotta have that motivation to do it, you know.
Right. And it seems like a lot of people don't have that motivation anymore, or, you know, they've been so conditioned throughout their life, especially it seems like this younger generation, and I keep sounding like an old man because I keep bringing up these millennials, but you know, they get their goddamn participation trophies, and they are coddled their whole goddamn life. And once life actually smacks them in the face, they don't know how to deal with it. And apparently, they just got coloring books now and blankies and big safe spaces.
They're emotional support animals. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I see a lot of that. You know, I'm constantly like my sister's youngest daughter calls me up and talks to me, and I'm constantly trying to toughen her up because she's got that whole liberal mindset. And my sister's not a liberal. She's my older sister. She's not a liberal at all. She's more like libertarian-esque. And but she has that kind of attitude of you know, life's not fair and you just got to make the best you can of it, and not whine about it, and not expect the thing is like everybody teases her because she's the youngest and because she's fucking weird in a lot of ways. She has a I don't know how to explain it. She just has this very kind of liberal way of looking at things, and she wants people to treat her a certain way. And I keep telling her it's not going to happen, right? And people are going to keep teasing you as long as they know that button works, right? As long as they know that their teasing you is working, they're going to keep fucking doing it, right? And so you have to learn how to just be able to laugh at yourself. And once you do that, you're no longer weak mentally, and you're no longer an easy button to push for their entertainment, and they'll stop. You know, and
Right.
But she has this kind of thing where, oh, I got to be treated equal and all this stuff. And now she brought home a transgender girl who was into her mom's house. She brought home a transgender girl a couple of weeks ago who was talking like in a man's voice, and you could tell like she was literally trying. That wasn't her normal voice. Like she was trying, you know. And everybody just kind of went in the other room like, I don't know who the fuck that is, but we certainly haven't met her yet, you know, whoever the fuck she is. And she was like half black. And my sister called me up and told me about this, and she was like, you know, what should I do? I don't know why people call me about this shit, because I'm not Dr. Phil, right? I'm not I'm probably the last person someone would want to call and ask about parental advice. But I told her, I said, well, she's half black, so you can bet on her with her liberal mindset of calling you a racist. So I told her, since you have to talk to her about it eventually because you don't want this girl in your house, just go draw a little Hitler mustache on your face and have a talk with her. Sit down and have a talk with her about it. And just say, yeah, I'm a racist, whatever. That's the way it is. You don't have to like it. That's the facts. And she can't be here. She's and my sister isn't a racist, by the way. She doesn't care she's half black. She was worried about being accused of that, right? And what it really was about was her trying to be something that she wasn't, because transgenderism has become like a big trendy thing. You know, like back when I was a kid, all the girls dressed like fucking Kurt Cobain. They had ripped jeans and, you know, the whole fucking band t-shirts on and everything. And everybody just kind of dressed like that, unless you were like in the hip hop culture. Then we called you a wigger or something like that. But there was that kind of whole thing, that whole kind of you know, culture back then. And fuck, little birdie just flew away again. Okay, so that, you know, and then like the whole bi thing, where like I don't know if you remember this kind of phase in the 90s, maybe towards the late 90s, where every girl was bisexual. It was like it was on the in now for girls to be bisexual.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it seems like this transgender thing is that way too, but it's for like a different reason. I think girls wanted to be bisexual because it was something that guys liked, and this transgender thing this is a way for me to be a part of the underclass, for me to be a special snowflake, and to be exalted, because in slave morality, you know, as we read in that article, to be a downtrodden one is actually to be the opposite. It's to be a part of a protected minority where you're given a trophy and status just for being a part of this, you know, demographic that's supposedly looked down on by society and persecuted, when actually that's not what's going on. So I don't know. That's kind of...
Yeah, I would actually agree with that, because, you know, I remember that crap in the 90s where I don't know, I guess girl thought she was bi, and it was more of a face thing. They kind of most of them just said they were bi, and maybe they like made out when they were drunk or some crap.
Yeah.
But they never actually did anything with that. And I think this whole transgender thing is kind of the same thing. You know, they're just kind of, you usually wear different clothes or whatever. It's not really that big of a deal, or you just talk in a different voice. But if, they say that the people who are actually transgender is like 0.2%, but apparently we have all got to bow down and change our entire society for 0.2% of the population now. But the media keeps pushing out all these people who are transgender, and I don't think any of them are. I think, back when we were kids, you had tomboys.
Yeah.
I think if you had tomboys now, they would call them transgender.
Yeah, they're like some girls that they like some of the guy toys and stuff. Like my sister was kind of like that. She liked a lot of she sure as fuck wasn't transgender, but she liked a lot of the guy stuff. I mean, she didn't like football or anything like that, but she liked, like some of my G.I. Joes and shit. She had her Barbie stuff too, but she also liked to kind of cross over a little bit, and we both had like our Lego sets and stuff, and made stuff. But I see there's a comment in the chat box. You got anything there? Somebody I can't
actually.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot over in the YouTube chat.
What's good? Got anything juicy? Are they just LARPing or shit posting or something?
No, they're not really shit posting. There's the only toxic masculinity is in the blood of the gays. That's a pretty good comment there.
Blood of the gays?
Or the only toxic what the hell? I can't say it now. The only toxic masculinity is in the blood of the gays.
Well, just to be clear here, I don't really hate on people because they're gay, and it's not because I'm trying to be accepting or anything. I just don't really care if someone's gay, as long as they don't wear it on their sleeve and they're not throwing it in my face, and I don't have to watch them make out with people in public. I don't give a fuck. Like people like Jack Donovan, for example. Jack Donovan's, I think, offered a lot over the years through his book, The Way of Men, and talking about the Bonobo Masturbation Society and getting people connected to their roots, and getting white people to come together and form their own little tribes and shit. I think that's quite a thing that he's offered to the conversation, and so people like him are definitely pretty cool, I think. But yeah, I mean, like the gays, as in the gay agenda and the LGBT or whatever the fuck that is, that whole thing. Yeah, most of those people can just go do something else with themselves, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I just wanted to make that clear that I'm not, against all gay people. There are probably some pretty legit, cool gay people that are probably even the alt-right that maybe we don't even know,
I don't know. That's like one of those things. That's kind of on the bottom of the list of crap that I fucking worry about right now.
Yeah, it's something that I wouldn't want to be broadly accepted in society, but I wouldn't want the government, smashing down doors and catching people in the act or something. I just think that, you know what I mean? That's kind of ridiculous. But it's not something that I'd like to see encouraged in society, but it's not, if someone's gay or whatever, I don't know if it's biological. There seems to be some arguments lately that it is somewhat biological. They're still trying to figure out what exactly creates gay people, but whether it is or it isn't is irrelevant to me in the end, because I just don't want it to be seen as something that's glorified in society. And if people can just keep that in their bedroom, I don't really give a fuck, about it. I don't need to know about it, kind of thing.
Right. It's like none of my fucking business.
Don't ask,
don't see your ass hanging out of your shorts down the street.
Don't ask, don't tell. You know what I mean?
Which,
anything else juicy over there?
No, they're just basically just comments. There's no actual questions or anything like that.
You know, people in the future, when we doing these things, if you have something intelligent to say and you put it down there, I'd like to be able to read it and respond to it, you know, that kind of stuff. But if you just want to shit post to or just put little tidbits of information, that's fine. But, you know, I'm just saying, if you want to actually contribute to the discussion at hand, you're more than welcome.
You can't see the chat room over there?
The thing is I'm afraid to turn the page here. I'm afraid I'm going to fuck something up. Hold on. I should be able to actually go and find it here real quick. Go to subscriptions. I figured out how to share my screen as well with everybody else, and I'll probably do that here in just a second. Let me see if it came up in my subscriptions. I have to basically go and click on my own video to see what's going on here from another thing. Oh, here we go. Okay. And actually, if I do that on the same thing, is it going to fuck everything up? Probably. Hold on. I'll have to go use my my Google Chrome here instead, just to make sure I don't screw anything up. Okay. 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 Let me kill the volume.
All right, so there is one question here.
Okay, I'm seeing it all now.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead. What were you saying? The question?
So the question is, as nihilists, I think we kind of covered this earlier, but do you see the difference between the herd and the tribe?
Yeah, I think, okay, so you have like the chieftain, because people who are, so there are like different psychological states. There are people who need a god, they need a leader of some sort, whether it be a god or a chieftain or a president or some external source to give their life meaning, to tell them what to do, to tell them what's right and what's wrong. And then there's this other kind of psychological state, which is what I call atheist in my book, and or what Nietzsche might call the Übermensch, or higher man, right? And it's this where, no, I decide what is of value. I confer honor onto things, and I don't need an external source of authority. I am my own authority. And a lot of people, the slave mind to the slave type of person, they're going to see that as, oh, that's egoistic. And to the atheist, is going to say, I know, what's your point? What's the problem, right? To him, this is a normal thing for his psychological state, okay, for this type of person who's independent. And so these types of people who will probably most likely be in charge of a tribe, who will probably be the chieftain or something like that, they will naturally gravitate, theoretically, to that type of position within the tribe, right? Because they're just very take charge type of people. I don't know to explain it. I don't know if that answers their question, but yeah, the tribe itself is a kind of herd, right? And then you have the kind of the take charge individual who is in charge of the herd, basically, is saying, here are the rules, and making those power decisions, those decisions of who's in and who's out, and making those tough decisions for the benefit of the tribe. That is, if you have that kind of government set up, if you have like a tribal society versus an aristocratic society, which is something I more or less like, where you have like the rule of the best, instead of what we have now, where it's the rule of the superstitious herd animal, basically. Is something that I don't particularly like. I don't like living under that kind of thing, where you have to, in order to be in charge, you have to appeal to the basic instincts and superstitions of the masses to get anywhere in charge. Like I don't really like that idea. don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. And I kind of take that in a little bit different direction. I think that if you're talking about tribes, you do need at least a small cohesive unit to be able to get certain things accomplished.
Right.
So you need those people around you which will be able to aid you and help you and support each other, I guess. And that's far more different than the herd, the mass of sheep out there who just go along to get along and are nice with everybody and anybody and have no real ties or loyalty to any one tribe. But I think if you're talking about the actual tribe itself, you definitely need that to accomplish pretty much any goals, unless they're very personal or intellectual things like that. Even intellectual pursuits, you still need some sort of tribe to accomplish those goals.
Yeah, like you need a certain amount of freed up time to be able to think and formulate complex ideas and that stuff. Like that's what civilization has given us, is that time. But I was going to say, not everyone I think is cut out to be in a tribe. I think there are some people who are so independent that they are just not cut out for that. They're more introverted and stuff. And these people are pretty rare. Let me give you kind of an example. So like when I was on the streets, I noticed that there were primarily the type of people, like when I was on the streets, I was homeless and shit, but I was working different jobs and stuff. I didn't hang out with other people like myself. I didn't really hang out with a lot of people. I had my own thing, my own life, and the things that I were interested in, and I wasn't trying to fit into any group. I didn't care about any of that shit. Maybe I had a few friends that I felt were equals to me mentally, psychologically, and so I would get along with those people. But I didn't have like this innate need to have that. They were just like companions that I had every once in a while. And so for me, I mean, it's nice and everything, but as far as like subjugating myself to, and don't take this too literally, but to the greater good, right? I'm not really into that. Maybe if I met, let's say, a group of people in this area that had similar ideas to myself and we all became really good friends and stuff, that's not to say that I wouldn't have some sort of altruistic relationship with them where when they were in trouble, I would help them, and when I was in trouble, they would help me, kind of thing. But it wouldn't be like the end of the world if I didn't have that. Other people don't define who I am. I define who I am. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And if I'm altruistic and empathetic towards someone, it's because they somehow contribute to my life. It's not out of a sense of moral duty or something. Like I feel like there's some sort of objective ought telling me that if I don't do this, I'm a crummy person or I'm a scumbag. It's because it's just something I like to do. I'm not doing it out of a sense of obligation.
Right. Okay. There was an actual. Oh, actually, yeah. Here's a good question. How does Charlemagne's Christianization of Europe fit into the master-slave morality?
Charlemagne?
Yeah.
Christianization of Europe? Geez, I'm not a historian. I don't know that much about, not that you have to be, but I really don't know much about, do you know much about Charlemagne?
Yeah, it's basically what Charlemagne did is that he went through France. I think I'm right about that. And basically slaughtered everybody he came in contact with who wouldn't convert to Christianity.
Okay, so I'm briefly aware of this. Because Christianity is a power structure, and one of the ways that it's a power structure is not just through slave morality, but also because during the early Christianization of the Northern European Empire, all the different tribes, the Goths, all that stuff. Kings learned that if you became Christian, that other kings couldn't attack a Christian brethren. And so it was a really, I think it started out, and I could be wrong about this, but my theory is that I think adopting Christianity, the main motive behind it was a kind of a way of getting power and a way of not being attacked by other tribes, right? By other kings. And I could be wrong about that, but that seems to me to be something that I've heard and something that makes sense to me. Let's put it that way. But yeah, they were first force converted by the sword, because while it may have worked out for the king's power interests, Christianity, it may not have worked out for many of the people under the king, the average person, or the different tribes within that given territory that the king rules over. A lot of those tribes did cling to, Northern European myths like, Odin and Thor and all that stuff, because Wotan and Thor. So you have Wotan, who is a god, who's a barbarian, who is a war god, and you have this kind of, it's tough because most theisms, most belief in most kinds of theism are slave morality, in the sense that you need this external authority figure to tell you what life's purpose is, what morality, what is acceptable, what is unacceptable. So it's slavish in that sense. But it's hard because Wotan and Thor and Frigga and all them, these are like war gods, and they don't really fall into that bracket. These aren't like gods of the whole world. These aren't like universal gods, right? This is like a polytheistic belief where these are more or less ancestors, right? It was an ancestral worship. And these were mighty people, but they weren't like all powerful, and they weren't gods in the same sense as the Christian God or the Muslim God, right? And they were seen more as a revered kin rather than, or a great chieftain in the sky rather than a kind of all-powerful disembodied mind that dictates to you right and wrong and all this kind of stuff. Like, I just don't see them as that type of thing. So I would say that, Viking mythology, Viking religion, or that culture was closer to a master morality type thing, I think. And actually, I prefer that. Like, if there was a way to like force yourself to believe something, and I don't think there is, but if there was a way to just say, I'm going to believe this, I mean, it wouldn't be, in my subjective system of valuations, it wouldn't be the worst thing you could do, right?
Right.
I could definitely get along with that more than I could Christianity or Islam or some shit like that, right? But there's another side of me that's, because I'm very independent minded, an allied mind, an unallied mind. It is, the notion of faith is grotesque to me. The notion of believing something without evidence smells of gullibility to me, right? It doesn't smell of independence, which is a characteristic I enjoy and that I value within myself and others. But if that's something that you believe in and it works for you and you're not a total slave animal, then that's pretty cool in my view. I mean, I'm not going to try to convince anybody out of that, really. I might ask you some questions if I'm bored. I might poke at your metaphysics a little bit, but at the end of the day, I'm not pissed off about it. I'm not like, oh, that's grotesque or disgusting. It's more like, well, okay, if that works for you, that's cool. It doesn't really affect me at all. You know what I mean? You're not trying to like force convert me. I don't really care. Kind of thing.
And then going back about something you said, I could see the kings actually adopting Christianity, like you said, to kind of try to unify the people. And I could see the people basically fighting against that because, like we were saying, that, if you're talking about the ancestral deities, I guess, that's not even a right word to use, but that's what people use nowadays. Because that's just the way we were brought up, I guess. And that's the language we have today. When you're talking about your ancestors, and you got some other guy telling you can't your ancestors anymore. You got to bow down to this one invisible spaghetti monster or whatever.
Yeah.
I can see these people fighting against that and having it to be done by force is pretty much the only way they could accomplish that.
Right. Well, the herd morality that we see today is a consequence of the Christian slave morality, because what you have is this herd type of psychology that we talked about before. These types, most people have this kind of slave kind of psychological condition. And so, but they don't have God anymore. So they create this kind of herd/slave morality. And it's herd morality. One of the ways it's herd morality is in the sense that they glorify what is good for the masses, what is good for the herd, as the objective righteous thing that we need to exalt and all that stuff. So all those characteristics that are good for the herd, like empathy and things like that, equality, right? All these things are seen as good and simply assumed. So like if you look at John Rawls' veil of ignorance, for example. So John Rawls, and I'll often hear this from secular moralists. I'll say, well, how do you come to the conclusion that equality is good and inequality is bad? Like, how do you objectively come to that conclusion? And I've many times someone has cited, John Rawls' veil of ignorance, and what they do is they'll say, well, you wear this veil of ignorance, and then you have to decide, you have to organize the society with this veil of ignorance. So what you do is, because you're wearing this veil and you don't know what your place in that society is going to be, you try to make everyone as equal as possible, right? But the problem is that this kind of thing begs the question. It's viciously circular, because the only way you're determining what is wrong and what is right is by wearing the veil of ignorance. But if you decide not to wear the veil of ignorance, then one can't say that you're being immoral, because immoral is being decided when you wear the veil of ignorance, right? And so in deciding that you need to wear this veil of ignorance, you're already presupposing that inequality is bad and that equality is good, right? Otherwise, what point would there be in wearing this veil of ignorance? Are you following me on that?
Yeah.
So this kind of new leftist, liberal progressivism, where all forms of inequality must be stamped out, it's a herd morality that is basically replacing. It's basically Christianity without the God, and but it's because the herd, we the people, if you will, the 99%, are taking God's place, right? So whereas Christian morality is about what God disapproves of, now it's what the herd, the majority, the average rube out there disagrees with, what is harmful to them, right? Whereas in the aristocratic morality, what is bad or evil is what is harmful to the aristocratic person himself, right? What is harmful to me and my goals is wrong in and of itself, right? So I don't know if any of that made any sense, but it's basically the new modern Christian morality is basically just exalting the herd, right? And what is good for the greatest number of individuals. You know, we see this in utilitarianism, for example. And actually, I keyed up a clip for a sound clip from Peter Shertet H's book, which I think I mentioned this earlier, was it's now made into an audio book. So now it's available, or going to be very soon, in an audiobook format. I believe on Amazon. And so I had keyed up this portion on that talks about utilitarianism and contractarianism, and basically talks about them as slave morality and stuff, and critiques them and shows why they're fallacious or whatever. I don't know if you wanted me to key that up, or if you wanted to talk a bit more or something.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
All right. Yeah, I have. Let me see. Just okay. All righty then. I think I already have this keyed up here. Let's play it.
Values may not be objectively incorrect. They can transgress one's own desires, and so can be disparaged as undesirable.
Oh, and this is from the audiobook Neo-Nihilism, The Philosophy of Power.
Rather than incorrect, to serve oneself. This understanding, nihilism, also undermines another very popular moral theory, utilitarianism, the view that what is good is that which yields the greatest happiness for the greatest number. Utilitarianism has two presuppositions that it cannot justify, namely, that all people ought to be treated as equals when weighing pleasure or pain, and that happiness is good. The first presupposition has a redundant theistic if clause. If we want to follow God's commands via Jesus's golden rule. God's fall, though, brings down the absolute sanction of this egalitarian rule. The golden rule, all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even to them, not originating from Christianity, but mostly proliferated therefrom, is very helpful to those who are in an inferior position, as its command would increase their standing, their power. But from someone in a superior position, this rule would decrease their relative standing. For such a reason does Nietzsche call Christianity a slave morality. Indeed, Nietzsche saw Christianity as a power structure emanating from the weak, as a system that conforms to their type subjective desire. The extent of this desire overwhelmed the Romans, causing their downfall. So victorious was this hostile takeover that such a subjective sentiment was ingrained as objective fact and common sense. This religious takeover set its roots so deeply into man's consciousness that today morality is considered only to be Christian morality, even consciously a Christian. Thus, the need for this very text to worm out those rotten talents. There have existed on earth many moralities. History emancipates us from common sense and prejudice, if that be desired. The second presupposition, that happiness is good, is also not an objective fact, unless considered a tautology, and if so, it is merely the analysis of a given definition, a definition that can be changed without contradiction, of course. Happiness is bad is not necessarily a contradiction. As said previously, happiness as end has not always been considered good, but quite the opposite, as a sign of decadence and decay. Logically, good means the attainment of a purpose. So happiness is good if it attains a purpose. but the purpose is subjective, personal. Therefore, to state that happiness is good can never be an objective fact. Furthermore, happiness can involve the unhappiness of others, as expressed by the German word Schadenfreude, in which case claiming happiness to be good, something to be attained, would contradict the first presupposition that one ought to treat others as equals. Utilitarianism cannot justify its foundational principle, despite Mill's attempt to do so via the use of the conscience. An absurd attempt, as the conscience's pronouncements are considered good, which merely postpones the error. Why is it good? What purpose does it seek to attain? Is that purpose objective? No, farewell. Utilitarianism is in essence a form of Christian morality that suffers identity crisis. Kant's moral theory, deontology, also suffers this ailment. It will suffice to say against Kant, generally genius in his thought, that he presupposes an Aristotelian teleology, that everything has a purpose, and that the purpose of reason, a good will, presupposes what good is as a foundation for arguing what goodness is, thereby begging the question. A good will, for Kant, is indistinguishable from a Christian subjective preference. Furthermore, the great Prussian simply assumes that morality must be prescriptive, and thereafter seeks to find postulates that would maintain this view, namely free will, immortality of the soul, and God. One merely denies the first assumption as being without reason or evidence, to deny the three consequent conditions. Though a post-Kantian generally, Schopenhauer rejected Kant's moral theory in likewise fashion. Quote, Kant's first false statement lies in his concept of ethics itself, a concept which we find articulated most clearly in the Metaphysics of Morals. Quote, in a practical philosophy, it is not a concern to indicate reasons for what happens, but laws for what ought to happen, even if it never happens. End quote. This is already a decided petitio principii, question begging. Who told you that there are laws to which we ought to subject our actions? Who told you that something ought to happen that never happens? What justifies your assuming this beforehand and thereupon immediately to press upon us an ethics in a legislative imperative form as the only possible sort? End quote. From On the Basis of Morals, section 4. Contractarianism is another false idol worshipped by the masses that is easily refuted. This moral theory claims that values derived from actions that instill peace and stability in society, such as altruism, charity, law abidance, etc., as it is in everyone's interest. We all sign an unwritten contract to behave thus that pays off. However, it assumes values in order to prove values, thereby begging the question, that is, assuming what it seeks to prove. It assumes that peace and stability are objective values, values that all would desire, in order to conclude that values that induce peace and stability, such as being non-violent and a good citizen, are correct. But if one does not consider peace and stability to be values in themselves, then the consequent values neither follow. A person may prefer a life of adventure, war, risk, to a life of comfortable conformism. As such, what he ought to do, his values, will differ greatly from the average man, and he will not be wrong, immoral, but simply different. Contractarianism also presupposes equality as a value, as will shortly be explained, thereby substantiating egalitarian values. But equality is not an objective value, and is chiefly a tool for those who have lower status, or for those who desire the backing of these ranks to overpower an opposing force. The most pernicious example of this mistake is the American philosopher John Rawls' veil of ignorance concept. He believed that an issue could be determined as moral or not if one imagined that one had to create a society without knowing one's role in that society, wearing the veil of ignorance. Naturally, he claimed, one would forbid all forms of inequality, as one could suffer it oneself. But it seems his veil also forbade him from seeing logic. If one wants an equal egalitarian society, one would wear the veil of ignorance. If one did not want an egalitarian society, one would not wear it. And one could not retort that not wanting to wear it was immoral. Moral is founded on choosing to wear the veil. Rawls, and those like him, presuppose that equality is good in order to prove equality is good, a serpent that bites its own tail.
So that's all I'll play because he's obviously selling this book, and I don't want to give it all away for free. But this was kind of momentous for me because it's the first time ever that this much has been shown of it anywhere. So it's kind of made its debut on your show and my show. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, you guys want to check that out. His YouTube channel is Ontologistics. He's got a bunch of great philosophy videos on there. We already played one of them from his Will to Power Nietzsche video, and then also you can buy the ebook edition on his site of the entire text, Neo-Nihilism, Philosophy of Power. You can buy it on his site for just a few dollars, and his site is www.philosopher.eu. So go check that out. It's definitely worth it. And the book I wrote was actually based on that book. So while my book's longer, it's more of an expansion on the ideas that he puts forth, and also applying those ideas and showing the political implications, how moral nihilism affects political philosophy, how it negates many political philosophies. And one of the things that I talk about is this contractarian view that he pulls up, or that he just talked about, and this idea that you explicitly or implicitly consent to be governed, right? So this idea that you're consent to be governed, but that falls apart for many reasons. One of those reasons is that consent is something that you consent to do, but governed is something that is it's government by force, right? That's what government is. It's force. So it's therefore not something that you consent to, and thus it is contradictory. So you can't have a consent of the governed. That's just, that's self-contradictory, because consent is voluntary by its very nature, and government is involuntary by its very nature, because law is force, right? Government is force. And then it's also viciously circular. But that's in my book, and I point that out. I don't want to go into that in this podcast. I don't want to go too deep into that, but there is a kind of argument that's used to support contractarianism that is actually self-refuting. It's or I should say, begging the question, assuming the very thing it's trying to prove.
Right, because you got the people in the sovereign citizen movement. We were actually talking about that the other day. Who, they talk about how, they say the Constitution is a contract with the people. But I never agreed to that contract. Nobody asked me if I agreed to it or not. They just assumed I did because I was born here.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's just all cheap sophistry is what it all is, really.
Right.
But you just come down to realize at the end of the day that there's no objective morality, and there's no government. There's no such thing as authority. There's just people with power and the ability to use that power. But there's no, there's no like morality that somehow sanctions their rulership of other people. It doesn't exist, right? It's not immoral and it's not moral. So I think the difference between power nihilism, which is my philosophy, which is, derived from Peter's neo-nihilism, which is a form of moral and political nihilism, which would say that which would disagree with the authoritarians in saying that authority in that sense doesn't exist. There's no one with the moral right to rule somebody else. But in the same token, we disagree with the libertarians and the sovereign citizens that it's immoral for someone to rule someone else, right? So we disagree with both those.
Right, because just, the cops have no actual authority over you besides the use of force.
Right. If we're just saying that authority is force, then yeah, of course that exists and that's true. But there's a difference between saying someone can do something and someone ought to do something. And you can't logically derive a value from the fact that someone can do something. You can't logically derive that someone ought to rule someone else from the fact that they can rule someone else. Right?
Right.
So political nihilism, as I use the term anyways, is just a negation of political philosophy. It's like saying, yeah, you can have your political philosophy, but no one's bound to it, right? No one's bound to abide by your political preferences and shit, It's either enforced or it isn't. Because government, law is force. And without force, law, prescription is utterly useless. It's like wanting to be able to have a cup of coffee, but you have no way to get the coffee. So what's the point in the desire if you can't enforce that desire, right?
Right, and then on the other side of that coin, this whole idea about rights is basically a ideological and imaginary concept that people like to make up, especially on the left. They're always talking about rights. Everything's a goddamn right. And honestly, there's no such thing as rights. They can give you privileges. They can give you, a little bit of pittance here and there. But anytime the government wants to turn around and take away those rights, you really have no say in that.
Yeah, well, there's natural rights theories, and I deal with that in the last chapter of my book as well. But there's natural rights theories where you have people like Rothbard and people like John Locke who argue that there's a certain way that human beings are. There's a certain nature of human beings. And then from these facts and characteristics about human beings, we derive these rights, these prescriptions. And of course, that's fallacious because you can't derive prescription from description. And so, there's a big misunderstanding. And actually, in his book, Peter Schurte H., from the book we just played, in the beginning, he goes through the distinction between prescriptive ethics and descriptive ethics. And he spends a good portion, first part of the book, explaining why all of these different, how a confusing of these two, a confusing of description and prescription accounts for many of the mistakes that many moral philosophies make, and political philosophies. So, like, for example, with Marxism, a lot of Marxists will try to claim that Marxism is purely descriptive, and thus it doesn't have an is-ought problem. But then Marx goes ahead and says, I think it's Marx, he says, let the people or workers or, I think it's like workers of the world unite, which is a prescription. Sorry, did I lose you? You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Let's make sure your heart was still beating there.
Yeah.
But let me see here. Move that out of the way. Anything interesting in the comments there? Anything juicy?
There was one question that there it is. This person asked, if you could address the role of hierarchy in a collective movement.
I'm not sure what they mean by address. I mean, I could say that. Wait, did you say hierarchy in a collective movement?
Yeah, with a role of hierarchy.
Well, unless you're just going to have. Here's the thing: so if let's take this in terms of the alt-right, and I know we've discussed this in a prior episode, but I think it was episode 2. But if it's just going to be, if there's going to be no hierarchy and it's just going to be democratic, right? We'll say the alt-right, just to pick a movement, right? A collective movement. Then you're just going to have the mediocres trying to design a society. You know, you're going to have a mediocre. You're going to have the masses design a society that fits them, and it's not going to. It's going to subsidize mediocrity instead of lending to a higher goal for humanity. I don't know if that answers the question, but it's just a subjective preference. I mean, the role of hierarchy is it's a way of attaining to a certain goal. If you don't have hierarchy, then you have just the average rube, the average unintelligent person making important decisions. And I don't personally like that. So I don't want to see that. So I would say the role of a hierarchy in a movement is to make decisions, right? To have order and have that order, have society or a movement organized in such a way that it is not creating mediocrity.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be their main problem. You can't have a true collectivist movement or group or organization or anything like that. And, you know, none of them really are. You know, they try to pretend like they are, but they're clearly not. They always have some sort of hierarchy in there somewhere. But for argument's sake, I think you're spot on with that. You're just going to have this mediocre.
You're going to have more of this.
Everybody gets a vote and everybody gets a say.
Yeah, you're going to have more of this equality bullshit. That's what you're going to end up with.
Right.
Except it's going to be equality within a certain, among white people. If we're talking about, you know, white nationalism, collective movement, or something like that, like then we're just talking about equality within that, and where then you're going to have the plebeians bitching that they don't have more say, or they don't have, like, that's the whole idea of democracy, right? Is to have everyone have a say. And quite frankly, there are just most people that I just don't want to have a say. I don't want them to have a say in how shit's going to go. You cannot like that, but that just shows that we have different preferences. It shows that we can't hang, man. We can't have beers, you know. We can't take long hot showers together. I don't know what to say. Just gonna have to deal with it. You know what I'm saying, man? Just go cry, have a couple beers. It'll be all good.
I'm pretty sure most of the people listening to this would agree with that some people just shouldn't have a say.
Yeah. Well, some people shouldn't breed either. So, you know, that's just, you know, I'm dead serious about that too.
Well, most people realize that too. But we can't, you know, openly talk about eugenics or dysgenics, as it were, as what's actually going on nowadays within our society. And, you know, you can't, well, I guess you can. I would like to, but at this point in time, we can't, you know, decide who can and cannot breed.
Right. I think it's just common sense, man. You know, you don't want to breed certain types that are going to be not conducive to your goals. And there's always going to be, like, obviously, if we can, I mean, it depends on what your goals are. I mean, if you, I guess if you're like this genius and you're like, well, I want everybody to be as stupid as possible so I can control everybody, then I guess, then that works for you, right? Then fine. Having a lot of breeding stupidity is fine for you. You know, Nietzsche talks about the artist tyrants towards the end of his book, the Will to Power, and he talks about these basically these higher men that are like artists, philosopher tyrants that come in and they mold humanity into something great and grand, right? And of course, his political theory wasn't really finished. It's not something that, you know, is really worked out with intellectual rigor. So we kind of have to fill in the gaps here and there, right, with our own stuff. So it's just the way it is, you know. Capitalism depends on having a lot of stupid people and customers through, so it propagates dysgenics. Well, see there, Freighter Nile. Oh, we know Freighter Nile. Freighter Satan Nile. Man, he's just going to keep pushing that socialism. All right, so buddy, the same argument can be made about socialism. Socialism, because it's giving out all of these give me that policies, these free things, you know, these free, like, let's make healthcare free and all that stuff. It's subsidizing the weak and mediocre, and that's why I'm not down with socialism. My interest is not in, again, my interest is not in the herd. Well, for the most part anyways. I'm not too concerned about them. Yeah, fascism talks about making a newer, higher type of man like the Ubermensch. Right. And I don't think you're going to get there with socialism. Okay. And I don't think here's the thing. It depends on what you mean by socialism. Like, when I think there's like a knee-jerk reaction because of the socialism that lefties want nowadays, and the socialism that you see in like Denmark or, you know, some place like that. And I see this kind of attitude in the white nationalist community, if we can call it that. That is like, we need to look out for the welfare of the race. And I'm saying that's fine and everything. That's fine. Let's look out for the welfare of white people. But if that is our main goal, just to subsidize the existence of someone because they're fucking white, to me, that's not good enough. To me, there has to be a subsidize of quality, not just the fact that they're white. And that's, I think, where we have problems. But I don't know. What do you think, man?
No, I actually agree with that. It's just because you're white doesn't mean you're fucking special. It doesn't mean you did anything with your life. And it doesn't mean you're going to ever achieve anything in your life. And I think that's it's kind of one of the problems both the white nationalist struggle, I guess, and the left has, you know, when they try to throw their white privilege crap on us. You know, they oversimplify everything. And well, maybe it's not oversimplified, but, you know, they try to put everybody in this one little basket. Well, not everybody goes in that basket, because some people should just, I don't know, be culled from the goddamn herd.
Yeah, well, the thing I like about capitalism, free market capitalism, like Ancapistan, and I'm not saying I'm not a fucking anarcho-capitalist. Let me just make that clear right now. But the thing I like about it is that when you make good quality products, then you're going to do well. People are going to buy your shit. But in a socialism where a socialist government has control over productivity, there's no accountability there. How is there accountability in socialism? Maybe I'm misunderstanding something. I'll admit that right now. I could be. But from my understanding of socialism, I don't see how you're going to have for example, in the kind of government we have, right? Government has control over those features that we have with security. So if police decide they don't want to show up for 9 minutes or 11 minutes or whatever their average call time is, tough shit, because they have a monopoly on force. So I can't go with another, I don't have a choice. I can't go with another company whose call time is, their arrival time is, I don't know, 5 seconds or some shit, right? Or they just they provide a better service, a more quality, comprehensive service. In socialism, like let's say socialized healthcare. Socialized healthcare is notoriously, I don't care what country you look at, it's notoriously bogged down with bureaucracy, and you end up on this long ass waiting list. Whereas with a capitalistic system, you have competition, and you have other alternatives that you can go to because they provide a better service. There's not a monopoly on that service. So that's kind of my problem with socialism, is that it breeds a mediocre service industry, right? Where, let's face it, most of what government does is very mediocre. And a lot of the services that it provides could be provided by a private means that is probably more efficient. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you could tell me where you might disagree or agree or whatever with that.
Well, no, because you always hear about, Canadians coming down to the United States because we have a better healthcare system.
Right.
And they'll rather pay out of pocket, with cash than have to go through their socialized medicine they have up there in Canada. And, they're trying to push the same crap in the United States because apparently healthcare is a right, even though, we went through hundreds of thousands of years without doctors and health insurance. But these people don't understand that in order to get everything that you want for free, like the right always brings up, somebody's got to pay for it. So I got to work, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. So the government can come and take half my money to give it to people who, one, don't deserve it, and two, haven't done anything to warrant that they get anything from anybody.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. I'm not even sure that I'm entirely nationalist either. I'm like nationalist in the sense that if that is the most realistic option we have at this point, then yeah, I'll settle for that. So it's something I settle for. But if and tribalism for me is more a step in a better direction. But see, each of these systems has problems. In any system you choose, there's going to be some demographic that gets left out of that system, that gets the shit end of the stick, right? And in a say Ancapistan, it's going to be the non-wealthy, the non-creative, productive individuals. People who are disabled, for example. And in a society like in a socialist society, it's going to be the business people, the producers, right? Because they're going to be forced, like let's say Bernie Sanders' wet dream is going to be, really hard to start up a business because you got to pay for example, he's going to expect a little mom and pop operation to pay for everybody's healthcare so that they get free healthcare, right? Even though it's not free, somebody's fucking paying for that shit. And it's going to be the business owner, because his taxes and my taxes and everybody else's taxes are going to go sky high to pay for this shit. And so somebody's going to get left out at somewhere down the line. says, are you looking for sponsors for your podcast? I own a t-shirt company, Royce Riot Apparel, and would like to back you. Absolutely, dude. Totally. Are you kidding me? I love that. I don't know. Are you looking for a sponsor there, buddy?
I'll let anybody, well, not anybody, I shouldn't say that. It's not really a misnomer. I would have to look into it, I guess.
Yeah, we'll look into it, man. You're friends with me on Facebook, so why don't you just drop me some links to your t-shirt business? We'll give it a look over, and I'll get right back to you. But yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. It'd be nice if we could get, like, Cantwell's got some t-shirts where he's got lefties hanging out of a helicopter there. If we had something like that going on, that'd be pretty cool, man. I don't know. I'd like something on a t-shirt that says something like radically purge the left or something like that. Maybe have some sort of I don't know, maybe loading lefties into boxcars. We could see like little transgenders with their heads out the window going down the choo-choo track. That'd be pretty cool. I wouldn't mind something like that.
Well, actually, yeah, we were talking about getting some t-shirts made up for Radio Werewolf. So maybe I'll look into what this guy's got and maybe send some business his way.
Yeah, for everybody else who listens to this later, maybe you commented, we didn't get to your comment. As I get better at this, I'll definitely pay a lot more attention to your comments and try to get at least until this show has 20,000 subscribers, then I'm going to be like, shit, I can't, I'm going to be picking 1 out of 1,000 because there'll just be so many that I won't be able to pay attention to all of them. But I do try to pay attention to listener input and try to make this a better show. Yeah. I do want to mention, so just some show announcements. So I opened up a pro account for this podcast on SoundCloud. But then they're like, so I went to upload, I think it was episode 4 with Libertarian Realist, and it was like, we have now blotted out your first podcast, right? And until you upgrade to Pro Ultimate account. So next month, I'm going to upgrade my Pro Ultimate account, which is $15 a month. And then, because I'm completely broke right now, I've had other things I had to spend money on this month. And then all of the episodes will be available on SoundCloud. But if you go to either talkshoe.com and look for the Philosophy of Power podcast, or if you just go to my website, www.power-nihilism.education, and you look on the right, you'll see that all the episodes are there in MP3 quality, and you can listen to them on my site. And on the right side, there's all the episodes that are available now on SoundCloud, and you can listen to those on my site as well. So just figured I'd throw that out there. And anybody has any thoughts or suggestions on the show for future episodes? Maybe you want to come on. Maybe you've got some topic you want to throw at us or something. Just go ahead and shoot me a little email there at power-nihilism@gmail.com, and we'll see what's up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always open to suggestions. I say that all the time on my show. Anybody wants to email me, it's pretty easy to get my email. It's just dion@radiowerewolf.com. And werewolf is spelled a little bit different. It's WEHRWOLF. So if you got any ideas or suggestions or topics or guests or whatever you want to do, you can just shoot me an email. I'm always open to doing whatever. Most of the time, I guess.
Also, while I think of it, while it's on my mind, I'm still looking for somebody with music abilities to make me like a 60-second guitar riff, you know, something that says philosophy of power. I don't mean literally says it, but, you know, something that if somebody with music abilities could send me an MP3 file on my, you know, Gmail that I just mentioned, power-nihilism@gmail.com. I need a theme song for the show. So anybody interested, you know, maybe play electric guitar or something, you could, you know, send me something. Maybe you play, I don't know, maybe you know something about mixing music. I don't know, something. Shoot me something. I'll listen to it and I'll let you know whether I think it's you know, worthy. And yeah, because every show needs a fucking theme song, man.
That's right.
You know, I think you got one, don't you? You got. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Did you make that, or did somebody else?
Somebody else made the guitar track for me, but then I did the rest of it. And I can actually probably make you something.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, I could probably do that this weekend. Yeah, I kind of know what you want, because we kind of talked about this before.
The only thing, go ahead. Sorry.
It won't be an electric guitar, but it'll be like more industrial.
All right.
But it'll be badass.
All right. Cool. Yeah. The only instrument I play is harmonica, so I can play like some blues riffs and some Black Sabbath and shit like that. But I don't really. I don't think like an entire theme song of 60 seconds is with just harmonica is going to work. And I'm really not that good with the music software and trying to make my own shit with some, I don't know. But something that doesn't come up on YouTube as copywritten would be nice. So if anybody's listening to this and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to go take sound bites from this song and this and mix it up and make some original thing, that's not going to work. Like, it's got to be something, you know, that's not going to come up as copywritten.
Right. They got scores of people who actually go around and look for those sort of things. And I'm sure they probably have some sort of program that goes through and finds things like that too.
Yeah, exactly. And I get sick of that. Like, I had to take down my what was it? I had to take down my on my atheist channel. My video had like 13,000 views on it, and it was a master versus slave morality video. And actually, Frater Nile has Frater Satan Nile, whatever it is. He downloaded it to, or uploaded it to his channels, so that it's still on his channel. But I had to take it down off mine because they muted the music. It didn't have any sound to it. It was just a video with no sound. So I was like, fuck. So I just deleted it. You know, there's no point in having it.
Right.
So what the fuck I was gonna do? Oh, I was gonna where's the Google. Oh, there it is. This one. Okay. So I figured out. So you go over here and you click. Or am I forgetting this now? You remember how we figured out how to share our fucking screen and shit?
Yeah, you just said there was some button.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which fucking button that is. Oh, there it is. Your entire screen? Yeah, my entire screen. Why not? Sure, why not? Share. Holy crap. So it does that tunnel view. Where it's, I want to find a way to, so it doesn't do that tunnel view. What it is, people, is I hit share my screen view with you guys on YouTube so you can see what's on my screen. But then it creates this tunnel of, it's like a screen inside the screen, inside the screen, inside the screen, and it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. I'm like, fuck, that's not going to help anything. But I was thinking for like future when I play a video on this podcast, I can, you know, you guys can watch, actually not just listen, but watch the video that's occurring. So I'll have to figure this out and figure out how to get it to not do the tunnel thing here. But yeah, all right. I can't think of any other announcements, dude. But it's been over 2 hours, man. I don't know how long your show usually goes for.
Usually you do like an hour and a half at the most.
All right. Do you want to stop broadcasting and stuff? And...
Yeah, we'll probably shut it down for tonight.
All right. Yeah, just stay on real quick and I'll talk to you and stuff. But all right, guys. I'm not exactly sure when the next episode will be of the Philosophy of Power podcast, but I'm trying to do this somewhat regularly, at least like once a week. So I'm guessing we'll probably do one next week. Just keep your eyes peeled to my website. I'll probably make an announcement. And then, of course, if you're friends with me on Facebook, James Theodore Stillwell III, then you'll know I make several announcements usually about when I'm going to do a show. So, you know, that'll help you out there. If you're not like pro-white and all that stuff, I'm probably not going to accept your friend request because I'm just sick of liberals reporting my shit. So, yeah, I'm sick of the fascist left trying to censor my free speech. So, all right, just figured I'd mention that. And I'll go ahead and bring this to a close. I'll end this recording. All right, you know, this uploading it, like I should say, uploading it to YouTube, like especially a show that's this long,
Right.
it's like 2 hours or 2 and something hours. It takes a long time, and you got to render it first, right, before you upload it, and that takes like freaking hours. So usually I don't upload it till the next day to YouTube, but this is great because now it's just uploading live. So so I don't have to worry about that, the at least the YouTube portion of it.
No. Can you hold on 1 second?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Click another tab. I'll go back to your comment later when I start to mess around with this, and I'll try messing around with the tabs and figure out how to get that tunnel vision out of there. But obviously you can see what I'm doing on my screen. I see. That doesn't look that bad.
Okay.
Yeah, now I got to figure out how to stop broadcasting here. Hold on. Oh, this little button down here. All right. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.